What happens when Hollywood's biggest star sits down for what should be a simple chat about his latest movie? In just 29 seconds, one comment from the host would turn a friendly interview into the most explosive television moment of the year. Last night, viewers watched in shock as Tom Cruise stormed off Kelly Clarkson's show after a confrontation that nobody saw coming. This is the exclusive inside story of how it all went wrong. The studio lights were bright that evening as Tom Cruise walked onto the set of the Kelly Clarkson show. The audience erupted in cheers as America's favorite action star waved and took his seat across from the talk show host. Everything seemed normal. Tom was there to promote his new Mission Impossible film, and Kelly had her usual stack of questions ready to go. "Welcome back to the show, Tom," Kelly said with her trademark smile. "Thanks for being here tonight." "Thanks for having me, Kelly. Always a pleasure," Tom replied, settling into the guest chair with that famous Cruise grin. The first few minutes went smoothly. They talked about the stunts in his new movie, how he does all his own action sequences, and his dedication to giving fans the best possible experience. Tom was charming and energetic, just like always. The audience was eating it up. "So tell me about this helicopter scene everyone's talking about," Kelly said, leaning forward in her chair. "Oh man, Kelly, it was incredible. We spent months preparing for that sequence. I actually learned to fly helicopters specifically for this movie. The crew thought I was crazy, but I wanted it to be real. No green screen, no fake effects, just pure adrenaline." The audience clapped and cheered. This was exactly the kind of content they came to see. Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise, passionate about his craft, and willing to risk everything for entertainment. "That's amazing," Kelly responded. "But doesn't your family worry about you doing these dangerous stunts? I mean, you're not 20 anymore." There it was, the first hint of something shifting in the conversation. Tom's smile flickered for just a moment, but he recovered quickly. "Well, I stay in great shape, Kelly. Age is just a number when you're doing what you love." "Right, but seriously, Tom, you're in your 60s now. Don't you think it's time to let the younger guys handle the dangerous stuff? I mean, what if you got hurt? What would happen to the movie?" The audience went quiet. Something in Kelly's tone had changed. It wasn't the usual light, supportive banter anymore. There was an edge to her voice that hadn't been there before. Tom shifted in his seat. "Kelly, I appreciate your concern, but I've been doing this for over 40 years. I know what I'm doing." "But that's exactly my point," Kelly pressed on. 40 years is a long time. Maybe it's time to pass the torch? There are so many talented young actors who could take over these roles. Don't you think audiences might be ready for something fresh? The studio audience was completely silent now. You could feel the tension building. This wasn't going the way anyone expected. Tom's publicist, sitting in the front row, looked nervous. The camera operators glanced at each other, unsure if they should keep rolling. "Kelly," Tom said, his voice still controlled but with a harder edge, "I'm not sure what you're getting at here. I'm just saying, Tom, and please don't take this the wrong way, but some people think your best days might be behind you. The last few Mission Impossible movies didn't do as well as the earlier ones. Maybe it's time to consider stepping back from action films and trying something different." The words hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Tom Cruise, the man who had dominated action cinema for decades, was being told on live television that he was washed up. His jaw tightened, and for the first time in the interview, his famous smile completely disappeared. "I think there's been a misunderstanding here, Kelly," Tom said slowly. "I came on your show to talk about my new movie, not to be insulted." "I'm not insulting you, Tom. I'm just asking honest questions that I think our viewers want answers to. Isn't that what good journalism is about?" "Good journalism?" Tom repeated, his voice rising slightly. "Kelly, you're a talk show host, not a journalist. And even if you were, this isn't journalism. This is just rude." Kelly's smile never wavered, but something cold flashed in her eyes. "Well, Tom, I think our viewers deserve honesty. They've supported you for decades, and they have a right to know if you're still capable of delivering the same quality entertainment they've come to expect." The audience was completely stunned. Many of them were Tom Cruise fans who had come to see their idol, and now they were watching their host attack him on live television. Some people in the audience started to shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Capable?" Tom said, his voice getting louder. "Kelly, I just told you about flying helicopters and doing stunts that actors half my age wouldn't attempt. What more do you want from me?" "I want honesty, Tom. I want you to admit that maybe, just maybe, you're holding on to something that's already slipping away. Your last movie barely made back its budget. The reviews weren't great. People are starting to move on." That was the line. Tom Cruise stood up from his chair, his face flushed with anger and disbelief. "Kelly, I don't know what's gotten into you tonight, but this is completely unprofessional. I've never been treated like this on a talk show before." Maybe because other hosts were too afraid to ask the tough questions, Kelly shot back, still sitting calmly in her chair. Maybe they were too starstruck to have a real conversation. A real conversation? Tom's voice was now clearly audible to everyone in the studio. Kelly, you invited me here under false pretenses. You told my people this was going to be a fun, light interview about the movie. Instead, you're ambushing me with personal attacks. They're not personal attacks, Tom. They're legitimate questions about your career and your future in Hollywood. If you can't handle that kind of discussion, maybe that says something about where you really are in your career. The audience gasped. Some people started to boo, though it wasn't clear if they were booing Tom or Kelly. The situation was spiraling completely out of control. Tom looked around the studio, seeing the shocked faces of audience members who had come to support him. Many were shaking their heads in disbelief at what they were witnessing. He turned back to Kelly, who was still sitting there with that same cold smile. You know what, Kelly? I think I see what this is really about, Tom said, his voice cutting through the tension. This isn't about my career or my age or anything else. This is about ratings, isn't it? You thought you could boost your show by creating drama where none existed. Kelly's smile faltered for just a moment. That's ridiculous, Tom. I'm trying to have an honest conversation with you. Honest? Tom laughed, but there was no humor in it. Kelly, there's nothing honest about what you're doing here. You're trying to manufacture a moment at my expense. Well, congratulations. You got your moment. Tom, please sit down. Let's finish the interview properly, Kelly said, but her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. Finish the interview? Tom shook his head. Kelly, you ended this interview the moment you decided to attack me instead of having a normal conversation. I've been on hundreds of talk shows, and I've never been treated with such disrespect. The audience was now clearly on Tom's side. People were calling out supportive messages to him and expressing their disappointment with Kelly's behavior. You could hear voices from the crowd saying things like, "Leave him alone," and "This isn't right." Kelly tried to regain control. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Tom, I think you're overreacting. These are questions that entertainment reporters ask all the time. Entertainment reporters? Tom's voice rose again. Kelly, entertainment reporters don't invite someone onto their show under false pretenses and then ambush them. They ask tough questions, sure, but they do it with respect and professionalism. What you're doing is neither respectful nor professional. I am being professional, Tom. I'm asking you questions that our audience wants answered. If you can't handle that, maybe that proves my point about whether you're still cut out for this business. That was the final straw. Tom's face went red, and he pointed directly at Kelly. You want to talk about being cut out for this business? Kelly, let me tell you something. I've been making movies since before you were even famous. I've entertained millions of people around the world. I've put my body on the line, literally, to give audiences the best possible experience. And you're sitting there, safe in your little talk show bubble, trying to tear me down for what? For ratings? For clicks? For some cheap viral moment? The audience erupted in applause. They were clearly supporting Tom's defense of himself. Kelly looked around nervously as the crowd's energy shifted completely against her. Tom, I think you need to calm down, Kelly said, but her voice was shaking slightly now. Calm down, Kelly? You just spent the last 10 minutes telling me I'm washed up, that I'm too old, that audiences don't want me anymore. You did this on live television in front of people who came here to support me. And now you want me to calm down? I was just asking questions that people are thinking, Kelly said defensively. No, Kelly, you are being cruel. There's a difference between asking tough questions and being mean-spirited. What you did tonight was mean-spirited, and frankly, it says a lot more about you than it does about me. The studio fell silent except for some murmurs from the audience. Kelly looked genuinely rattled now. Her usual composure was cracking under the pressure. Tom, I'm sorry if you feel I was being unfair, she said quietly. If I feel you were being unfair? Tom's voice was incredulous. Kelly, you weren't unfair. You were unprofessional. You were disrespectful, and you were deliberately hurtful. This isn't about my feelings. This is about basic decency. Tom started walking toward the edge of the stage. The audience could tell he was preparing to leave, and many of them started calling out for him to stay. Not because they wanted the interview to continue, but because they were supporting him. Tom, please, Kelly called after him. Let's work this out. We can edit this part if you want. Tom stopped and turned back to face her one last time. Edit it? Kelly, you think this is about editing? This is about respect. This is about treating your guests like human beings instead of punching bags for your entertainment. You can't edit your way out of what you did here tonight. Tom, I made a mistake. Can we please start over? Start over? Tom shook his head sadly. Kelly, some things you can't take back. You showed your true colors tonight, and so did I. The difference is, I stood up for myself with dignity. You tore someone down for no good reason. The audience was completely on Tom's side now. Some people were standing and applauding him. Others were calling out negative comments toward Kelly. The energy in the room had completely shifted. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tom said, addressing the audience directly, "I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. You deserve better than what happened here, and I'm sorry you had to witness this. You came to hear about movies and entertainment, not to watch someone be torn down unnecessarily." The audience cheered loudly for Tom. Many people were standing now, showing their support for how he had handled the situation. Kelly made one last attempt to salvage the situation. "Tom, please don't leave like this. We can have a real conversation about your movie. That's what people want to see." Tom looked at her with something that might have been pity. "Kelly, you had your chance to have a real conversation. You chose to do something else instead. I hope it was worth it." With that, Tom Cruise walked off the stage to thunderous applause from the audience. People were standing, cheering, and some were even chanting his name. Kelly sat alone at her desk, looking stunned and defeated as her guest disappeared behind the curtain. The cameras kept rolling as Kelly tried to compose herself. She looked directly into the camera with a forced smile, but everyone could see she was shaken. "We'll be right back after these messages," she said weakly, and the show cut to commercial. But the damage was done. In less than 15 minutes, what should have been a routine promotional interview had become a disaster. Tom Cruise had walked off the set, the audience was angry, and Kelly Clarkson was left to face the consequences of her decision to ambush one of Hollywood's biggest stars.